Hello and welcome to Total Health with Dr. Nick, where my purpose is to inspire, empower, and motivate you to live longer, healthier, and more abundant lives. In today's video, I want to speak to you about the best fats that will get you into ketosis. Now, before we do that, I want to do a little bit of inspiration first. We got such great comments before. In fact, one of our viewers whose comments and testimonials I read said, you had me to tears. I can't believe you actually mentioned me in your video. So I want to give another shout out to one of our great viewers. And so this one comes from Damie. And Damie writes, in fact, this is pretty lengthy, but I'm not going to get to all of it because it'll have you in tears the whole time. Hi, Dr. Nick. I just wanted to let you know how much you've changed my family in just 1 week of us starting the keto diet. I'm an obese mother of 3, which one of them is 15 and already at my exact weight of 300 pounds. I had to actually pull her out of school last year due to bullying. I can't imagine that. I cannot imagine that. Also, my husband has had type 2 diabetes for years, and as well as high cholesterol and high blood pressure, even though he is very thin. I'm telling you this because when I decided to start keto over a week ago, I was very confused, as many of you are, and I felt so overwhelmed, but since I came upon your videos, all that changed. Your videos are so informative, and I have been such a great support and guidance system with our journey. And even though we haven't been doing it long, my daughter and I have already lost some weight, and my husband checked his blood the morning after, and right after his first keto dinner, his blood had already changed significantly. His blood sugar had dropped into the normal range of 120 to about 125, which I guess it hadn't done that in a long time. We feel absolutely great with so much energy and are just happy. I don't know how to describe it. Dinner time is so fun, trying out all the recipes, and we're still freaking out at all the delicious meals and sweets out there. Thank you so much for what you've done for our family, and look out for some future before and after photos. That would be awesome. I would love to see those because you need to see actually the good you're doing in so many people out there. Turns out she's actually their family lives about 50 miles from my office. And so you better come in and visit me. I want to see you guys so I can give you a big hug. So anyway, thank you so much for sharing that with us. You are going to inspire so many people. And yes, you are a rock star. Anyway, so in today's video, I want to talk to you about the best fats that will get you into ketosis. But also, too, what are the best fats that actually produce ketones? Because that's really what it's about. So many of you start the ketogenic diet and you're thinking, this is great. I could just start eating fats galore, but you might not be eating the right fats. For number one, it doesn't get you into ketosis fast enough. For number two, you might be eating the wrong fats that actually put weight on. So you want to be very careful about that. Not that fats are bad. That's not what I'm saying. I'm going to show you why at the end of this video that certain fats are better than others at keeping the weight off. So you better watch to the end, because I'm going to give you specific fats that you may be using, or specific fats that actually will benefit you, that you don't want to sabotage your results. And of course, if you like what we're talking about, make sure you like, share, comment, and subscribe. So let's go ahead and dive on in. So, like I said, a lot of you get started on the ketogenic diet, and right away you are having a swine and cheese party. You're thinking, I could have all the bacon, all the cheese I want, I can have all the butter I want. And there's some truth to that, but you have to be careful early on. Your body's not ready for that kind of fat onslaught yet. You don't have the right enzymes. You're not ready to do that yet, and it gets you into trouble. So you want to be careful. You want to be cleaner in the beginning, and as your body starts to develop and you become more fat adapted, that's when you can start to get into some other kinds of fats. But in the beginning, we want to keep it clean. So you want to avoid the saturated fats. Saturated fats are not a good idea to have in the beginning. Now, some of you have seen one of my previous videos where I talked about the 10 benefits of saturated fats. So I am all about it. I think saturated fats are wonderful, but not so wonderful early on in the ketogenic diet. You want to start off with other types of fats. So if your goal is to get into ketosis fast, which is all of our goals, you want to get right in, you want to start seeing results, you want to see that meter start moving, you want to see the P-test showing up with ketones, the breath analyzer, or if you're doing it the blood way where you're seeing beta-hydroxybutyrate, then you want to see that meter move. You want to see that strip turning purple. I know what it's like. Believe me, I know. But if you're using saturated fats in the beginning, you're not going to get into it so quickly. It's going to be a lot harder. Also, too, you want to feel better. Some of you experiencing keto flu or getting brain fog or just have low energy. Well, the kind of fats early on are going to make a difference. And once again, watch to the end because we're going to be talking about what kinds you want to use. Keto flu, you'd like to get that through that a lot easier. Certain fats make a difference. You want to get fat adapted faster. And also, too, understand this. Once you become fat adapted, that means your body starts recognizing that fat is a better source for fuel than glucose is, all right? Glucose is not a very good source. It's a dirty source, meaning it produces a lot of free radicals, whereas fats are a much better fuel source and it yields out a lot more energy. So once you become fat adapted, then, like I said, you can switch into some other fats that we'll talk about. But for now, you're going to want to use the fats I'm going to talk about specifically in this video. And of course, you want results. You don't want to drop out. If you're not getting results, if you're not seeing that meter moving, if you're not seeing that purple strip going, if you're not feeling the weight loss, if you're feeling all this brain fog and low energy and flu, you're going to want to drop out. So I want you to get the best results possible. So you're going to want to, like I said, watch this to the end. So in a study done in the Journal of Clinical Endocrinology and Metabolism, did a study on two groups of people. They both did the ketogenic diet, but the difference was they changed the types of fats they used. So in group number one, they used more saturated fats. They had 60% saturated fat, 50% polyunsaturated fat, and 25% monounsaturated fat. In group two, they just changed. So as you can see, all they did was change from saturated to polyunsaturated being the majority. So 60% polyunsaturated, 15% saturated, and the monounsaturated stayed the same. So really the only difference was flip-flopping the saturated and polyunsaturated. And what they found was this. The group one that had more saturated fats actually had less beta-hydroxybutyrate, about 3 milligrams per deciliter, or 3.1. The group over here, the number two group, which had more polyunsaturated fats, actually had 8.4 milligrams per deciliter of beta-hydroxybutyrate. And that's the one you really want to focus in on, guys, because the beta-hydroxybutyrate has a tremendous amount of health benefits, and that's the one you're going to measure more when you're looking at it in the blood. So why did this occur? Why was it that it was so much more beneficial to have a polyunsaturated fat rather than a saturated fat when it came to actually producing the ketones? Well, it turns out that when you look at fats, they travel through your bloodstream in something called a triglyceride. And a lot of you know about that. You've heard about it. Your doctor's tested you for it. You're all worried about it. My triglycerides are high. What's going to happen to me? Well, this is what they are. I'm going to tell you right now all they are. You have 3 fatty acids, okay, with a glycerol backbone. That's all it is. 3 fatty acid groups or 3 carbon chains of fats with a glycerol backbone. That's all it is. So when your body's trying to, carry fat through the bloodstream, it needs this to be able to be soluble in your blood. So it binds it together like this. But what happens is when it gets to your cells, your body breaks it apart. And it breaks it apart into different types of fats. Now, a lot of you may be wondering, what is a saturated fat? What's a monounsaturated fat? And what is a polyunsaturated fat? Well, I'm going to tell you right now. It's pretty simple. Basically, all you have to do is understand that all fats, like I showed you a moment ago, there were 3 carbon chains. They all come in a carbon chain. Now, in this case, this is a saturated fat. Saturated fats have all these carbons, and there's only a hydrogen attached to them. So you see this? All these carbons with hydrogen bonds all the way around. So when a carbon has only hydrogens around it, it becomes saturated. In other words, it's saturated with hydrogen. It doesn't mean that it's greasy and slimy and oozy and drippy and all these things. It doesn't mean it's all gross. It just simply means that there's all these hydrogens attached to it. Now, saturated fats have a tremendous purpose. Like I said, go back and watch one of my previous videos where I talked about the benefits of saturated fat. And you can recognize saturated fats because they're typically solid at room temperature. So things like lard and tallow and butter and coconut oil, which is about 90% saturated fat. They all tend to be firm, or they all tend to be solids at room temperature. Now, a monounsaturated fat, well, what does that mean? That means that along this chain, one group right here, these carbons right here, don't have those hydrogens attached. Instead, there's this double bond, and the double bond is just how it holds on to another carbon. So if you and your friends are walking down the street and you're holding hands, well, that's a bond between the two of you. Well, can you imagine all of a sudden holding both hands like this? Then you have a double bond. It's just that simple. So here we see all these carbons lined up, and instead of these two carbons having hydrogen and hydrogen, now those hydrogens have been taken off and it's a double bond. That is a mono-unsaturated fat, which means it's one. Mono meaning one bond. That's typically your olive oil, your cashews, almonds, peanuts, pecans, and avocados. Now, what is a polyunsaturated fat? Well, that's called a PUFA. Well, polyunsaturated fat means there's two sets of double bonds in there. So here we see this group has less hydrogens and this group has less hydrogens. And that's really all it is. This is now poly, meaning more than one. Now, you see a couple of different types. It's very common to see two types of polyunsaturated fatty acids. One of them we typically think of as bad and one we think of as good. Well, we have linoleic acid, that's an omega-6 fat, and linolenic acid, that's an omega-3 fat. We typically want more 3 than 6. So that's a little crash course in understanding fats. So turns out, like I said, that having more mono and polyunsaturated fats in your diet early on in the ketogenic diet will actually help you get into ketosis much, much faster. Now, in a study done in a Journal of Nutrients, and this study was done on hamsters, so it's not a human study, but it's an animal study, but the results are very similar to the way it would happen in humans. They found this. These results suggest that regardless of whether the specimens had a high fat intake or not, dietary fat containing high MUFAs, or monounsaturated fatty acids, had beneficial effects on maintaining blood lipid profiles and preventing fat accumulation in obese hamsters. So when they had these hamsters eating this type of diet where they had more of a keto type of diet, higher in MUFAs and PUFAs, they found that they didn't accumulate fat. So even though they were obese, they didn't accumulate any more fat eating this type of diet. Now, what kind of fats do we want to have? Or what are the most beneficial ones that are the monounsaturated and polyunsaturated fats? Well, typically nuts. Nuts are going to be great, and they're great for snacking too. So you have your peely nuts, pecans, Brazil nuts, macadamia nuts, hazelnuts. By the way, the higher up the scale is, the more you want of those. The lower they are on the scale, the less you want. Why? Because these here have higher fat to carb ratios. This has a lower fat to carb ratio. So things like cashews, you might say, hey, wait, Dr. Nick, I thought cashews aren't good for me. No, they're okay for you, but they are going to have more carbs than they do fats as far as in a ratio. It doesn't mean they have more carbs than fats, but they're a little higher in carbs on the nut scale, we'll say. So you want to have ones that are more fat to carbs. You want to stay on the upper part of the scale. Walnuts are fantastic, almonds, of course, and pistachios too. Now, as far as seeds, what kind of seeds can you have? Well, chia seeds are great. Chia seeds are amazing, great source of high-quality omega-3 fats. In fact, I'm going to be coming out with a recipe for chia seed pudding, which is absolutely amazing. I got to admit, I make this every single night. I love it that much. If you like tapioca, where it's got that kind of a consistency, you will love chia seed pudding, and it's like 4 ingredients. I mean, it's so fast to make. So anyway, chia seeds, flax seeds. The thing with flax is you want to make sure that you grind them up, because if they're ground up too soon, if they're ground up at the store or you buy them pre-ground, they're going to oxidize. Because once again, as I mentioned before, the problem with PUFAs, or polyunsaturated fatty acids, is that they're highly reactive. And by the way, that's the reason why they're converted so quickly and so easily into ketones, because they're highly reactive. When these types of fatty acids, whether you have either the double bond or the two double bonds, the monounsaturated or the poly, whenever you have more bonds in it, it makes it more highly reactive. So that's good and bad. It's good in that it makes it more reactive, that if you're getting it fresh, it's going to convert to ketones a lot faster. But it's not good that if you're buying it in a store in the form of, say, flaxseed, you may get flax seeds that are more rancid or oxidized. So you want to make sure you get them fresh, grind them yourself. It's going to be the best way, either in a coffee grinder, or if you have a Vitamix, that type of grinder or blender, that'll just pulverize it a lot better. So hemp, fantastic. Hemp is just great. Lots of great quality protein there. Pumpkin seeds, and of course sunflower seeds. And make sure they're raw, because raw you're going to save the vital enzymes and nutrients. You want to make sure you get everything raw here. Now, fatty fish. Different kinds of fatty fish. Of course, the king of all fatty fish that we all love to eat so much is salmon. Make sure it's wild caught. Wild caught and sockeye are going to be the best. Sockeye does not eat the bigger fish, so you don't get that buildup of mercury. So sockeye is probably one of the best ones to use. Mackerel is also great. Herring. tuna, and sardines, all great sources. I do recommend that if you get sardines though, do not, and you're gonna think, what, this is crazy, do not get them packed in olive oil, all right? Well, wait, Dr. Nick, I thought olive oil was so good. Olive oil is good. The problem is most companies that make and pack sardines don't use very good olive oil, okay? It's a not very high quality olive oil, so I would much rather have it packed in water and add my own olive oil, so that's a much better way to do it. That way I know the quality I'm using. Now, as far as avocados and olives, now, these two are undoubtedly the kings of my food. I use these every single day, depending on what I'm going to use it for. But avocados, eat avocados every day. They're fantastic for you. I did a video on the benefits of avocados. Go back and watch that. They're absolutely fantastic food. And avocado oil is absolutely amazing. It's got a higher smoking point than olive oil, so much, much better for cooking. It's about 460, where olive oil would just be smoking at that point. Now, olive oil, fantastic. Olive oil and olives are just absolutely amazing. They are super, super healthy, especially for heart health. So these are your best choices here. So eat this in abundance. And by the way, a lot of you guys are always saying to me, what are some great snacks? Well, I'm going to do a video on that where I just show you purely keto snacks, but here's one right here, just olives. I come home all the time and just have a handful of olives. It's a great snack. You're getting all the great fats. So anyway, I hope this was beneficial. Like I said, 2 things you should have gotten from this. Number 1, what types of fats to eat. So a little recap here. MUFAs and PUFAs, those are going to be the best ones. Saturated fats you can have later on. Once you become fat adapted, your body builds up more of the enzymes needed to break these fats down, then you'll be fine. But in the beginning, have more monounsaturated fatty acids and polyunsaturated fatty acids. Stay away from the saturated fats. Don't have those so early on, so that way you get into ketosis faster. Also, too, from the Hamster Study, you should have learned just the types of fats. When you're eating MUFAs and PUFAs, those don't put weight on, right? So get you into ketosis fast and don't put the weight on. And once again, be careful of this. I get this question all the time. People will say to me, I've stalled out in my keto diet. Most likely it's because you're still eating too much fat. You're going to need to lower your fat a little bit, because if you're eating too much dietary fat, your swine and cheese parties, bacon, cheese, and butter all, in copious amounts, your body's going to be burning that. It's not going to go to your fat storage. So you want to lower your fats at some point, so you're getting just enough that you're satiated, that you're happy, you're staying full, but not so much that your body's not burning this fat. So like I said, hopefully this is great information for you. If so, make sure you like, you share, you comment, and subscribe, and keep those comments coming, keep those testimonials coming, and I will keep giving you shout outs, because you guys are rock stars out there. You are killing it. You're crushing it. Keep up the great work. Well, thanks so much for watching. This is Dr. Nick. I love and appreciate you. Have a blessed day. Bye-bye.